Outgoing Representative Liz Cheney lost her primary. Oh, don't you just hate it? Not really. She's been one of the worst Congress people that we've talked about here on this channel, and she's not going to be in Congress anymore. And that's a good victory for America. And so shout out to our friends in Wyoming for making a good call. Liz Cheney, you're fired, is what Donald Trump would have said. And we are going to take a look at Trump's reaction because he is on Truth Social doing a victory lap, as is rightfully due. Liz Cheney has been a massive thorn in his side for quite a long time as the head leader, essentially, right? Benny Thompson is really the chairman of the January 6th committee, but Liz Cheney as the vice chair, she's kind of running things, right? She's really sort of the person who is leading the charge against the former president. And so now she's not going to be in Congress anymore come next year. So what's going to happen to the January 6th committee? We don't know, but we are going to unpack the election. And it wasn't just one of these elections that was sort of a close call. She kind of eked on a loss, or Harriet Hageman kind of eked on a victory. No, it was a demolishment. Catastrophic. It was 37 points. And there's been a lot of people who've gone through the history and the elections, and some people are saying this is like the fourth or fifth worst loss by an incumbent in American history. Like, it's a blowout. 37 points, right? That's like not just like you lost. That's like people are throwing you out aggressively. They are angry. You've lost basically everything. And this is important because we have to ask ourselves, right? Liz Cheney, if she's going to be promising to run against Trump in 2024, or at least primary him, and then after the primary, right, she loses, run as an independent to potentially siphon off some votes from him. We have to ask ourselves, is she going to bring anybody off? Is she going to siphon anybody off of the Trump base, or any moderates? If you put a group of moderates up against a Joe Biden, you say you've got a Liz Cheney, a Donald Trump, and a Joe Biden, or a Gavin Newsom, or whomever, right? The question becomes, does Cheney siphon up enough from Trump to cause a spoliation and a victory for whoever the oppositional candidate is? We don't know, but a political scientist would say she's got to have a base in order to do that, right? She's got to have sort of like a Ron Paul following, or she's got to have like a Dennis Kucinich following, or a Bernie Sanders following, in order to be effective, just like Ross Perot and others. And does she have that? It's hard to see how that can happen when this is what the vote looks like. Harriet Hageman up 66.3% to Liz Cheney's 28.9%. So it's just like a blowout, right? Not even close. And this was something that they were trying to sort of squeeze on by really bringing in a bunch of Democrats to switch over and to go vote for Liz. Say you're a Democrat, become a Republican, go vote for her, and that way we can stay in power. Now, there was sort of a collective mourning last night as people were recognizing their future was evaporating. Oh, Liz Cheney, she's going to save America. She's the only one holding Trump accountable, and a bunch of weirdos out there. But, they were doing that all late last night, and I saw something very interesting about Elon Musk. And you say, what? Elon Musk, what is he doing on this channel? We don't talk a lot about him often. I mean, we talked about him with Twitter and stuff like that, but not in a Wyoming election, right? It seems sort of like out of place for some reason. But there's a very interesting story. And in fact, this came over from Bloomberg saying that Elon might have actually been involved in some of this stuff. And so here they write, it says from Bloomberg, Musk was among guests as McCarthy raises money on Cheney's home turf. Whoa! House GOP leader is supporting Cheney and Cheney's opponents in Tuesday's primary. McCarthy said he's confident that Hageman will defeat Cheney, and of course she did. But this was interesting, right? And this got published yesterday. Elon Musk is among the guests at a Wyoming event hosted by Kevin McCarthy, the same day that Liz Cheney lost her election. Elon's in Wyoming raising funds. McCarthy refused to confirm or deny Musk's attendance, says, I'm not going to talk about that. Leave me alone. He said in a telephone interview from his hotel room in Teton Village, Wyoming, which is exactly where I was just like 2 weeks ago. They didn't tell me they were going to still be there. Otherwise, I would have stuck around. Tesla didn't also respond for requests for comment. The event is for members and donors and candidates, McCarthy said. Musk, whose SpaceX operations is based in Bakersfield, made significant contributions, some to PACs connected to McCarthy. The resort at Teton Village is not far from Cheney's home, another illustration of how much of a pariah the state's lone House representative has become. And of course, Elon didn't confirm anything about it either. But, it's an interesting question because we're seeing some of the tech bros get involved in some of the election stuff, right? What is Peter Thiel doing? Well, he's supporting Blake Masters. He's supporting Vance, right? He's supporting all of these additional candidates. And Peter Thiel is bros with Elon. And so now you've got some pretty hefty billionaires who are getting involved in the political field. And it seems like they're on the side of the Republicans, which is not a bad thing. Now, Liz Cheney, after her catastrophic, just horrendous failure of a loss, I mean, she should feel bad about it. But Liz Cheney came out and she had some very interesting things to say about it. In fact, she said that, hey, by the way, did you know Abraham Lincoln ran for office and he lost elections? And guess what? He saved America. And guess what just happened to me? Liz said, I just lost an election. And you know what happened after Abraham lost his election? Saved America. So you can just figure it out yourself, what I'm about to do next.
The great and original champion of our party, Abraham Lincoln, was defeated in elections for the Senate and the House before he won the most important election of all. Lincoln ultimately prevailed, he saved our Union, and he defined our obligation as Americans for all of history. Speaking at Gettysburg of the great task remaining before us, Lincoln said that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from this earth. As we meet here tonight, that remains our greatest and most important task. Most of world history is a story of violent conflict, of servitude and suffering.
Okay, so, she's definitely comparing herself to Lincoln, right there. Right? That first sentence. Lincoln lost a House and a Senate seat before he saved America. She just lost her House seat. She's going to save America. Okay, so you might say, a lot of people quote Lincoln in speeches and, they sort of go back, Lincoln saved America, I saved the Union, all this stuff. It's kind of a, it's just sort of a tried thing that happens in American politics. Everybody, it's like Lincoln and Washington and all this stuff. So you go, okay, Liz Cheney, she can't be like that delusional, right? Like there's no way she's that much of a deluded person. She has to be somewhat connected to reality, right? Like there's no actual way she's comparing herself to Abraham Lincoln or prognosticating that the challenge she faces is the same challenge that Abraham Lincoln was facing. Is she implying that? I don't know. So I don't think so, right? You might say, no, there's no way she's that deluded. She's got to not think that she's like, her ego can't be that massive, right? Well, here's another one. This is where she's talking about now Ulysses S. Grant. And just for context, okay, she's leading this fake January 6th committee that's not even a legally constituted committee, in my opinion. And I still haven't seen a formal ruling as to how you can have 9 members when the body is supposed to have 13. I don't know how that works because it says shall have 13. They don't. They've got 9. Supposed to be 5 Republicans. They don't. She has 2 on there. So it's not even legitimate. But that's what she's on, right? She's prosecuting her political enemies. She's comparing herself to Abraham Lincoln, who is somebody who had, a whole sort of slew of trials and tribulations, grew up on the frontier, actually led through the Lincoln-Douglas debates, had an adversarial conversation many times with opponents, was a practicing lawyer for, over a decade, right? A whole slew of actual conflicts that he was sort of leading people through. She's on a fake committee that doesn't even have an opposing counsel or even opposing witnesses or even opposing congresspeople asking adversarial questions in any context. So she compares herself to Lincoln, right? How many people died in the Civil War? Hundreds of thousands. Okay. It was a conflict of catastrophic proportions. And what happened, what did the Proud Boys get indicted for? What was the assault from one of them? Throwing a water bottle at a law enforcement officer. It's still on the mind map. You can go to j6mindmap.com. He got indicted for violently assaulting a police officer by throwing a water bottle at him. So Liz Cheney is sort of, I personally think it's a little bit different. Like a water bottle assault, a Capitol Hill police officer shooting Ashley Babbitt, some bruises and injuries for police officers, and a water bottle. Yeah. All right. So you can see how that's just a little bit diluted, right? It has to be diluted because there's no way she can possibly think that. But then here comes another one. This is now, it's not Abraham Lincoln. It is Ulysses S. Grant. Who was he? Oh, well, he was the general for the Northern Army for America, right? Against the Confederate States of America. We talked about this on our morning walk and talk for members and local supporters. The idea that Trump is a bigger threat to America than Jefferson Davis, the president of the Confederacy, or than Robert E. Lee, the general of the Confederacy, is insane. And that's what her dad said. And now she's going to compare herself to Ulysses S. Grant. Here she is. She's nuts.
And purpose. In May of 1864, after years of war and a string of reluctant Union generals, Ulysses S. Grant met General Lee's forces at the Battle of the Wilderness. In 2 days of heavy fighting, the Union suffered over 17,000 casualties.
Yeah, that's a real
At the
battle.
end of that battle, General Grant faced a choice. Most assumed he would do what previous Union generals had done and retreat. On the evening of May 7th, Grant began to move. As the fires of the battle still smoldered, Grant rode to the head of the column. He rode to the intersection of Brock Road and Orange Plank Road. And there, as the men of his army watched and waited, instead of turning north back towards Washington and safety, Grant turned his horse south toward Richmond and the heart of Lee's army. Refusing to retreat, he pressed on to victory. Lincoln and Grant and all who fought in our nation's tragic Civil War, including my own great-great-grandfathers, saved our Union.
Oh, great.
Their courage saved freedom. And if we listen closely, they are speaking to us down the generations.
Yeah.
We must not idly squander what so many have fought and died for. America has meant so much to so many because we are the best hope of freedom on earth. Last week in Laramie, a gentleman came up to me with tears in his eyes. I'm not an American, he said, but my children.
All right, so she's going to go lead America because she's like Ulysses S. Grant and Abraham Lincoln. And her great-great-great-granddaddy, first of all, I want to know what side he was on, what was going on with that one. But, Liz Cheney is now going to save America with heroic leadership, just like Abraham Lincoln. Okay, so, right, it's delusion. Honestly, I don't know how else to say it. Or she's joking, right? Or she must be sort of playing a part or a character. Like, somebody needs to tell her, like, enough already. Like, what are you doing? Can somebody just tap her on the shoulder or just kind of nudge her, right? You're done now. Kind of step aside. Like, we've heard enough out of you. Because this is crazy. She just said by her own statement there were 17,000 people killed in the battle. And she's, her whole life is about January 6th. All right, so we'll have to just keep, I guess, we'll see how it works out for her. Now, Donald Trump is very excited about this, as he should be. A lot of fun going on over on his True Social account. So let's cue some of this up because he's always dropping some good truths, and he's been on one. Now, let's get this queued up because he has been posting a lot today. And yesterday, we left off on Truth with Trump saying that the judge on the case should recuse, talking about the judge on his warrant case should be thrown out because of the conflict that he had when Trump was suing Hillary. But then after the election, and actually we talked about this earlier, he said in the raid of Mar-a-Lago, the FBI demanded that all security cameras be turned off. What is that all about? Huh? Says, we said no, says Trump. We said no. Like, why did you want to turn that camera off? Well, says no. Then he said, before the election took place, he said, if Liz Cheney loses tonight, the fake news media will do everything within their power to play it down and pretend that it was not a referendum on the unselects, that it was no big deal. Actually, it would be a very big deal, one of the biggest. And it was, in fact, true. She did lose. Now, while the election was going on, we learned from Trump, he said, the DOJ and the FBI just returned my passports. Thank you! Exclamation point. Whew! Unfortunately, when they raided my home, Mar-a-Lago, 8 days ago, they just opened their arms and grabbed everything in sight, much as a common criminal would do. This shouldn't happen in America. And he's right. Yeah, you shouldn't have FBI agents who are just going in there with boxes and just rounding everything up on your desk. This is all mine now. Right? Were those passports authorized on the inventory list? Did anybody see why they should have those passports? Was there national security information in there? I don't know. Maybe there was. But don't they have to establish a basis, a predicate for that? And they haven't done that. Or if they have, they haven't communicated it to us. And they just returned the passports. Donald Trump says, thank you. What a nice guy. Even polite after his passports are robbed out of his home. Trump continues, and after the election takes place, here he is on Truth. He says, congratulations to Harriet Hageman on a great and very decisive win in Wyoming. This is a wonderful result for America and a complete rebuke of the unselect committee of political hacks and thugs. Liz Cheney should be ashamed of herself, the way she acted, and her spiteful, sanctimonious words and actions towards others. Now she can finally disappear into the depths of political oblivion where, I am sure, she will be much happier than she is right now. Thank you, Wyoming. And as I said at the start of the show, thank you, Wyoming, and cheers to Wyoming and to Donald Trump. Saying thank you to Wyoming and our friends in Wyoming. And Trump continues. He said, look, Liz Cheney's uninspiring concession speech in front of a tiny crowd in the great state of Wyoming focused on her belief that the 2020 presidential election was not, despite massive things, he says, it was not that it's not even, he says all sorts of stuff here. But then he says, Liz Cheney is a fool who played right into the hands of those who wanted to destroy our country. He says, I assumed that with the very big Liz Cheney loss, far bigger than had ever been anticipated, the J6 Committee of Political Hacks and Thugs will quickly begin the beautiful process of dissolution. Is the J6 Committee going to dissolve itself? There was a referendum on the never-ending witch hunt. Says the people have spoken. Trump continues. He says, the fake news media is claiming that Liz Cheney has such a, quote, wonderful and bright political future. Maybe they didn't notice that she lost by nearly 40 points. She's too angry and sick to succeed in the future, but who knows? He puts exclamation points at the end of it. Maybe they didn't know that she lost by nearly 40 points. She's too angry and sick to succeed in the future, but who knows? Maybe she's got a shot. I don't know. Trump continues, and now he's posting, a bunch of stuff here. He says, Ted Cruz says Trump announcing 2024 would clear the GOP field. Probably true. He says the New York Times columnist David Brooks fears that FBI raid is going to reelect Donald Trump. Trump knows it. We have one that he posted here. He says an opinion piece from the Wall Street Journal. This is what Trump posted. He said, the payback for Mar-a-Lago will be brutal. What went around Monday will come around hard for the Democrats when Republicans control the Justice Department and the FBI. He posts this one, the Fascist Bureau of Investigation from American Spectator. He's got here Baltimore Sun. And so now he goes through and now he's sort of endorsing a bunch of people. Here he says for Mitt Romney was participating in a fundraiser for Liz Cheney. And Trump says that didn't work out too well, did it? Old Mitt Romney, not too useful. Here, Trump and the National Guard, he's posting some truth about that, and he appointed some judge. And then I think he gets into a bunch more sort of endorsements. And we got lawyer. He's endorsing a lawyer, Dan Goldman. Shout out to Dan Goldman, New York 10. He's saying he's going to be very compassionate. Also votes for Carolyn Maloney, New York 12. On the other hand, he says Jerry Nadler is likewise a hard-driving man. What is this? He's not talking about the diaper Jerry Nadler, is he? Are there two Jerry Nadlers? I don't know. He says the fake news media continues to push crazy Liz Cheney and the fact that despite losing Wyoming and her congressional race to a far superior candidate by an unprecedented 40 points, she has a bright political future. Really? I don't think so. But perhaps that's why we call it fake news. And that's the update over from Trump reacting to Liz Cheney and her just crushing, devastating defeat in her Wyoming primary. Now, you'd think after sort of a defeat like that, you might go into your fortress of solitude and reflect, journal, engage in, self-reflection of whatever Liz Cheney does, human sacrifices or whatever the Cheney family does. I'm not sure what they're into. But no, that's not what they're talking about. They're already using this as a springboard for 2024 because they're going to do whatever they can to stop Donald Trump from running and winning. And here is Liz Cheney on with NBC News after her crushing loss.
The former president said last night, you're now headed to political oblivion. You said this fight is just beginning. You've even launched a political organization already. So let's just be straight about it. Are you considering running for president yourself?
Well, what I'm going to do, Savannah, is spend the next several months completing my work in Congress, obviously completing my work representing the people of Wyoming. We have a tremendous amount of work left to do on the January 6th committee. And also, though, I'm going to be making sure that people all around this country understand the stakes of what we're facing, understand the extent to which we've now got one major political party, my party, which has really become a cult of personality. And we've got to get this party back to a place where we're embracing the values and the principles on which it was founded. And talking about, fundamental issues of civics, fundamental issues of what does it mean to be a constitutional republic.
But Congresswoman, you didn't answer me yes or no.
It takes to keep Donald Trump. I will be doing whatever it takes to keep Donald Trump out of the Oval Office.
Well, I know you didn't say yes or no, and that's fine if you're thinking about it. But are you thinking about it? Are you thinking about running for president?
That's a decision that I'm going to make in the coming months, Savannah. I'm not going to make any announcements here this morning, but it is something that I'm thinking about, and I'll make a decision in the coming months.
All right, so here's what's going to happen, right? So
about fundamental issues of civics, fundamental issues of what does it mean to be a constitutional
I'm going to do whatever
republic.
it takes.
But Congresswoman, you didn't answer me yes or no.
It takes to keep Donald Trump. I will be doing whatever it takes to keep Donald Trump out of the Oval Office.
Well, I know.
Yeah, so if Donald Trump runs, right, then she may want to go in there and spoil the entire saga, right? She may want to actually join in the primary, see if something happens, see if Donald Trump gets indicted or arrested or, flees over to go pal around with Kim Jong-un or whatever they think is going to happen. And, she can squeeze into victory in some diluted, bizarro world, who knows? Or if not, right, she actually goes and runs as an independent. But as we talked about at the start of the segment, does she have a base? Does she have anybody who would follow her, who she would actually peel off from Trump and bring over? I don't see it. I don't believe it at all. So she is, I think, still living in fantasy land. And after her crushing, just really embarrassing defeat, Twitter went pretty hog wild with some of the memes. And so, we might as well just spend a quick minute. I mean, they're right here, since they're open, since they're already open, we might as well look at a couple of them. And if you'd like to poke around on your own, well, I'm going to copy the link and drop the link in all of the various chats. And so you're free to poke around, and certainly give Benny Thompson a follow so that you can follow around if you'd like at home. But here's just a couple of them. Here's the first one. Oh, yeah. And I called this one Liz Lincoln. I thought this one was excellent. This one came in from Seoul. Liz Lincoln Cheney. I thought it was sort of Liz Lincoln. No? That's not bad. I think this one was pretty good. This one came in from, what's his name? Costner? Kevin? Is that his name? I'm for Liz Cheney. And then he disappears and he comes back with a changed shirt. This one, outstanding. We've got Joe Rogan having a conversation with Liz. Yeah, it was a great fight. Looked like you might have had him in the first, but what went wrong? What happened here? Liz Cheney meeting with Joe Rogan. We've got, let's see if there's some other ones. That's a good one. That was a good one. And Yeah, so there's just a lot out there, and I dropped the entire link. If you'd like to follow along, of course, I would encourage you to go check some more of those out. Let's see if here's another one. As we're scrolling down, got to make sure some of these are, YouTube friendly. But there was a lot more. You can go and check some of that stuff out on Benny Thompson. But Liz Cheney is now gone with the wind, just like the guy who was endorsing her. And we're not going to see her in Congress anytime soon, losing to Harriet Hageman by 37 points. Now, she's still going to be around and in Congress, sort of hosting the January 6th committee saga. And so we will continue to follow that as it unfolds. And we hope you are subscribed before you jump into the next video on this channel. And I look forward to seeing you there.